All right. So the second Git workshop is really focusing on collaboration. Um, this is really important, actually related to what we were just talking about, because professional software development is a team sport. Very, very rarely, especially early in your career, will you be writing code all by yourself. That sort of freelance consulting role that I think everyone in tech, especially early in your career, everyone's excited about doing freelancing and consulting and being a digital nomad. It turns out once you have a couple years of experience under your belt being on like a really strong engineering team with a good engineering culture, that really sets you up to do well as that consultant, right? Because you know how to be productive. So in this team sport, Git and GitHub are how code is shared, managed, and reviewed for a team. And can everyone read this font size okay? And all that good stuff. Cool. So as it says here, these are industry-wide best practices and conventions. Coming both from if you do some research online, you'll encounter a lot of these things and from experience. So this is really going to help you collaborate effectively and most significantly on your group project. But also, this is sort of the standard, more or less, of how the industry works in terms of collaboration. So it will be valuable to know about these and talk about them. Um, During the interview process, in technical interviews, they might ask you directly about this stuff. But again, because these engineering practices are pretty standard in the industry, you'll be expected to have some understanding of them, and it's possible it'll come up. And then finally, this sets you up that now in your group projects or in other collaborative work, once you're collaborating this way, you can put that on your resume. So there's three things we're going to cover here. We're going to cover what I've called tactics for team productivity and the golden rules of Git. We're going to cover the feature branch workflow, and if we have time, we'll cover merge conflicts. And then there is a team collaboration exercise. And I think I'm going to jump right into the feature branch workflow first, actually, because this part talking about sort of the golden rules of Git, some of the parts depend on this, and also this has some code, and this will kind of get us warmed up and ready to go. So let me go ahead and pull these guys up. I'm going to do a little bit of talking, and then I may actually ask for a volunteer to help me with a little bit of coding to demonstrate some of these things. And then after that, we'll kind of talk about how does this relate to teamwork. So the feature branch workflow, and let me just go ahead and full screen our slide deck here. This is about how do I use branches on Git to collaborate and collaborate safely without risking losing my code or messing up other people's code and making it easy for others to review my code. So when we talk about that workflow, we'll talk a little bit about then pull requests and code review, which are get more into collaboration. So this diagram looks a little funny. Let's see if we can zoom in a bit here. It doesn't want me to zoom in. And I will demonstrate it in just a minute. But down here is my computer, and up here is the GitHub repo in the cloud. And when I'm working on a team and we're all working on one repo, on one code base, we should all be collaborators on one repo. We're not forking, we're all cloning off of the same repo. We start with our default branch or the main or master branch. And when it's time for me to work on a new feature, I will create a new branch off of this one. And I'll name it, it might be front end login form or whatever naming convention we're using. All my work is done on this feature branch. And when we get to merge conflicts in a little bit, merge conflicts are done off of this feature branch. So I'm working on this. I'm committing, I'm pushing, I'm committing, I'm pushing. No one else is using this feature branch, most likely. So it's just me. Maybe two of you are working on a feature branch together if you're pair coding on something or working intensively, but usually it's just you. So you can just commit and push all the time. And other people might be doing the same thing. right? So while I'm working on the front end login form, someone else might have branched off and they might be working on, you know, the back end authentication. And so we can have people working in parallel because everyone creates their own feature branch to do work and it's pushing them up to GitHub. Then when it's time, when my code is ready to be reviewed, and we'll talk about when that is later, I create what's called a pull request, and people look at the code that I've written and review it. And once it gets the thumbs up on GitHub, we go ahead and it's called merging that pull request, which merges my feature branch onto the main branch that is shared by the whole team. And so my feature branch has been merged onto the main branch shared by the whole team. Now, when it's time for me to work on the next feature, I go back to main on my local, I run git pull to pull it down and create a new feature branch, and the cycle repeats itself, right? So this is happening continuously, and that's a pretty terrible arrow. This is happening continuously with multiple people on different branches. I'm going to do a little bit more talking as we go through the slide deck, and then we'll actually demo this. As it says here, this is the workflow written out. I pull down the most recent main, I create a feature branch and write code. I push that up to GitHub and I make a pull request. Um, if I need to, I merge main into my feature branch, and we'll talk about that in a bit. And then I approve the pull request to merge the feature branch. Um, the goal here is always to protect the main branch. I really never, ever, ever should be doing any work on the main branch. All that should be happening is once feature branches are good to go, they're merged onto main. And I'll talk about that more in the sort of tactics for team productivity, but that's how you keep a code base well organized and clean and safe when you have like 3 to 7 people working on it all at once in parallel. Um, Again, here we have just another diagram again with the steps involved. I just want you guys to sort of burn this into your brain, and we'll see this in action in just a minute. Um, the golden rules are don't have 2 people touch the same code at the same time, right? These are the things that can cause merge conflicts, which we'll talk about more in just a bit. Um, Never touch someone else's feature branch without permission. You don't know if they're working on it. You don't know if they have code they haven't committed and pushed up yet. Everyone gets their own workspace, right? Do all of your work on a feature branch. It's going to be tempting sometimes to just directly modify main. Don't do it. We'll talk about merge conflicts. It's when Git doesn't know how to deal with 2 different versions of the code when merging branches. We're going to see how to resolve merge conflicts on the feature branch and locally again so that we're always protecting the main branch. And finally, if you're ever dealing with a merge conflict or you know that your code might interact with the feature branch, communicate. Communication is going to be the most powerful tool you guys have to keep life simple and stay productive. So let me show what a pull request looks like. I have some examples here, and let's go and look at this one from the React site. So you can see here, here is a branch, and it looks like they won't let me see it because they probably deleted it. But at some point, someone working on React itself created a branch named this. And this was their feature branch, and they did all their work. And then they pushed it up, and when it was ready, they made what's called a pull request. And this is how we can review code. And we can see a couple things here. We can see the commits this person made. In fact, I could look at the changes in each commit, know how small this pull request is, and that's actually what you want. Well, this one's a bit bigger. right? So one way that people review code sometimes is by going through commits. Another way that people review code sometimes is by looking at the files that were changed on that branch. And if you want to, you can leave comments and have a discussion. And so this gets a bit into code review because once I've done my work, I want to share that knowledge with the team, right? Sort of like we learned about in the product management workshop. And it's not uncommon, as you can see here in this pull request, for a front end feature or any feature where maybe there's a user interface change. I might record a video showing what my feature does so that someone reviewing it knows how to look at the code. They can pull down and run the code themselves and see that it works. And also, again, for knowledge sharing. And so here we see the description of the work done, a description of how that was tested. And we see that, in fact, there's some code review and feedback here. And this is a big part of a pull request as well. It's for knowledge sharing, it's for quality control because two eyes are always better than one. And it's also for senior engineers or, someone on the team might have ownership over this feature to offer feedback and advice. Um, and you can see here there's some conversation, and they decide, hey, we're going to deal with whatever sort of UI styling that they're talking about later. And they'll do an A/B test when they do their UI polish stuff. Um, if we look over here, we can see that someone created a GitHub issue, which is sort of like a ticket. And this was the original task, right? And there's a pretty rich description of what the task is, along with a lot of images and screenshots. On a practical level, the smaller the team, the simpler you can make these issues because everyone communicates more and has more context. For a big open source project like React, you often need more communication, right? And if we go over here to the GitHub repo for Django, we can see another example of this where Django actually has, I believe, their own ticketing system. Yeah, so they're not using GitHub issues. And you can see that there's some sort of something related to the make migrations command, and they want to change how it works, right? And they've described it, they've shared some print output talking about what's going on. And here we can see someone decided to tackle this feature. There's a checklist for the reviewers to look at to make sure that the person writing this code has done a good job. You can see that someone more senior on the team said, hey, this looks good, but you need to write tests before we'll merge this PR. And there's some other back and forth. They must have added the tests, and now it's been given the thumbs up and it was merged in. And again, if we look here, we can see that this is not a ton of changes to the code, right? So you can see how important communication is and how powerful these sort of asynchronous communication tools like pull requests and code reviews can be. So, um, again, I'll demo code in a minute, but talking about what makes a good pull request or pull request message when it's time to share the code I've done for review, this is really the key. The smaller your code changes and the smaller it's called the diff or the difference on the PR, the easier it is to review. And the simpler your pull request messages, the better. Um, it like you saw, like an image is worth 1,000 words. I think screenshots and videos are great to add on pull requests along with descriptions. Whenever you make a pull request for code, before you do it, it's really your job to make sure that the code runs, that it passes all the tests, that it has no errors. We'll talk about merge conflicts in a bit, but it's your job to do that. A pull request should have a meaningful title. It should link to the GitHub issue or Trello card that it's related to. It should have a good description of what's accomplished, links to anything relevant, and most of all, make it as easy as possible for people reviewing your code to do this. Include instructions on how to run the code. Do they have to run make migrations in Django? Do they have to run npm install to install a new dependency? Include all the steps and then relevant diagrams. And then finally on GitHub, you can, by using the @ symbol, sort of tag or send messages to relevant people. So this is not a small amount of work, right? But if you guys invest in this upfront, you'll find it sets you up to have a good process and makes your life a whole lot easier. So we've taken a look at these already. I have them here in the deck, but we can see the conversations that go back and forth as part of a code review. I've talked about some of this already, but once you have your code ready, the goal of a code review is quality control. Nobody's perfect. Good programmers know that they make mistakes. So you always want a second set of eyes on the code, right? And so this is a big part of quality control. Um, it's a chance to enforce best practices and maybe even discuss best practices, right? Code patterns and architecture, naming conventions, coding style. Code review is a great time to discuss all of that. Tons of mentorship happens here. As a junior engineer, once you join a team, you will get tons of feedback on your PRs, and it will be a lot, but you will learn by doing it that way. And when you're reviewing code by, say, more senior engineers, you get to see how they do it and ask questions about it. Also, just general knowledge sharing. Like if I've written the backend authentication logic, it's good for everyone on the team to know how that works. And that's what a code review does. And then finally, a code review can be a good place for design discussions, right? We can discuss things, we can have differences of opinion, we can resolve them, and we can document it on the PR thread. And sometimes, there will be conversations as well. All right. So, that's been a lot of talking, but let's go ahead and let's actually see some of this in action. And just I'll share this link with you guys afterwards. But again, in the repo we have with this lesson, we have just the same stuff here that is in the slide deck. And give me just one moment here as I pull up my guide code because for this next step, we have a couple interactive things happening here. Okay, so I've gone ahead and let me close out some of these things that we don't currently need. So I've gone ahead and created a repo here, and I've put some code in here. Um, and let's put this off to the side. And over here on the other side, we'll have VS Code so we can see both of these. And this is the project that we're going to work with to demo this feature branch workflow. And along the way, we're also going to see a merge conflict and how to fix it. So it isn't quite, it's a pretty minimal example. We have a main README. There might be a front end directory at some point, but right now it's just the back end directory. We have requirements.txt for some Python code, which should actually probably be moved into my backend logic. And then a backend directory that also has a README. Um, and in fact, we may put some content there in a bit. And the heart of it is an app.py file for a simple Flask app. And to walk through this, I'm importing some things from Flask. I'm loading .env. I'm grabbing some environment variables. And what we're really going to work with here is I have a student class and a student has an ID and a name. I have a list of students and then I add some students to the list. Right here, I'm creating a new instance of my student class. And we have a typo here that we'll have to fix. And I have a really simple hello world route and a route to get all the students. So we're going to make a couple GitHub issues and we'll demo both the feature branch workflow and how to deal with merge conflicts. So let me demo the feature branch workflow first, and I'll sort of do it soup to nuts. And I think the two things we'll do first is let's fix this bug, right? So I think I'll go ahead, I'll create an issue, and we'll say bug, fix typo in app py. And I'm going to go to my code, make sure that I've pushed everything up and it's all here. And again, this is a really simple example. And we'll say, this line has a bug, fix it. For a real issue, we would want it to be more descriptive. Let's assign it to me. Let's give it a label. It's a bug that we're going to fix, and I'll hit create. Right? And my issue has a number. So, and we can see all of the issues here, and there's only the one. And so I'm going to take this one. And now what I'm going to do in my code base is first, I make sure I have the most recent version of main. So I run git pull. Now off of the main branch, I'm creating my feature branch, and we'll use the issue number. So I'll start with the issue number and I'll say fix typo. And there's not a lot to do here. Again, I just really want to demo the workflow. I'm going to commit my change. I'm going to push it up. Excuse me. And I get the message that the GitHub repo in the cloud needs to create the branch. So far, so good, right? If I look here at my code, then we see that there's a new branch that's created. GitHub is giving me a nice user interface to create a pull request. So there's two ways to create pull requests. Most of the time, I do it this way by hitting this compare and pull request button. You can also go to the pull requests tab in GitHub and hit new pull request. You're almost always going to be merging onto main, right? And that's what they call the base branch. This is where the work that I've done is going to end up. And we're pulling the work from our comparison branch, which is our feature branch, onto main. So for compare, I'm going to choose the branch I just worked on, and I'm going to hit, we get a nice preview here. I'm going to hit create pull request. So this is important. Making a pull request is always safe. This is always safe. This does not modify any code. Nothing has been merged, right? And so now I can see files changed. This is really easy to review. Um, you know what? I think we need some collaborators so I can have people help me review code. Um, let's see. Let's go to settings. Let's add a couple people on the team. I believe the team is, here we go, collaborators and team. And we're going to need to do this in just a moment for the merge conflict, which is why I'm doing it now, so that we can get it out of the way. And GitHub just needs me to authenticate on my phone. And now let's go ahead and can I get a couple volunteers? Would anyone like to help? Mainly in a moment when we do a merge conflict, we're going to need to do this. But I'll walk you through that. Rick and Chris. Okay, awesome. Thank you guys. Rick, what's your GitHub username?
Yeah, GitHub username is DeckerCR, all one word. So Delta Echo Charlie Kilo Echo Romeo Charlie Romeo. Hey, you can tell I'm military.
There we go. I dig it. Um, and so for you guys on group projects, you may just want to make everyone an admin. Um, at a minimum, everyone on the team is going to need write access. You might want to just bump them up to maintain. So let me go ahead and do that. If you don't mind, you'll probably want to check your email to accept the invite. And Chris, what's your GitHub username? I might have lost you, Chris.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I dropped it in our chat. I was muted.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. Thank you guys. And I'm going to add you as a maintainer as well. And now that I've got that, let me go ahead and I'll just tag you guys both as reviewers. And if one of you guys, once you've accepted, I think you might need to accept the endpoint invite, but let me go ahead and drop the link in here. And so the PR link is in the chat. So once you make a pull request, you want to share it in Slack. And if one of you guys could maybe just like leave a comment with a thumbs up or like approve the pull request, then let me know when you've done that. And while we're doing that, I think I'll demo this flow just one more time. This requirements.txt probably belongs in the backend directory. So again, let's just walk through this flow one more time before we move on to the more advanced scenario with merge conflicts. And we'll just say move requirements.txt into backender. And we'll say, and I'll make my issue. And note that I'm going to go back to the main branch. And I just always run git pull to make sure I have the most recent version of main. Have you guys had a chance to approve that PR yet, by the way?
I just got in. So yeah, I see review pull request. Yep, and I can merge pull request. Oh, somebody already. Oh, it
So
looks like Chris already get it.
yeah, so go ahead and like add a comment or something, Rich, or approve. But you actually touched on a really good point. I was going to talk about this in a bit, but now this is the perfect time. Reviewers should not merge pull requests. The way to think about merging, this is when we're actually going to merge this code onto main. But it's not just about that. It's about letting the rest of the team know this has happened. If our app is live and in production, like at the startups I was at, I would have to monitor our logging tools to make sure there were no bugs for like a couple hours when something was merged to main. So whoever's created the feature and worked on it, they really have ownership, and they should be the person to merge to main, both because it feels good to hit that merge button and also because it's their job to make sure that it merges to main correctly. And so that's a good delegation of responsibility where you don't want the reviewer to merge to main, you want the person who worked on the feature to merge. Um, Now I might be busy or I might have to take my dog to the vet, and like Rick, I might message you on Slack and say, "Hey, can you merge that to main for me? It should be good to go." And then Rick, you can go ahead and merge it, but then it would still be your job to make sure that it merged correctly and like communicated to the team. So now this is merged. This is, or excuse me, this is ready to merge, right? And you guys can see how you can add comments. Looks great. I love it. Rick, like you were saying, when you review, there's like an approve button as well. So I'm going to go ahead
Yeah,
and
I
hit
see it now.
merge. All good. And I'm going to confirm this merge, right? And what's happened is, and let me go ahead and I actually want to jump over to, I'm going to pull up our slide deck again because I want to get that, I want to get that diagram, right? So we just went through this whole flow. I created that branch off of main for my feature branch on my local machine. When my work was done, I pushed it up to GitHub. Up here, I made a pull request. It was reviewed, approved. When I hit merge pull request, that's when we're actually adding that code or merging that code from my feature branch onto main. But this is still on GitHub in the cloud. If I go to my local Git repo on my computer and I type git log, I don't have that commit yet, right? If we go to now that this PR is merged, if I look at main for our repo here and we look at the commit history, there's, well, they've added a git adds a merge commit to track stuff, but we have this fixed typo one, right? Um, so let's see this final step and how this relates to multiple issues. And this will actually touch on a couple things, which will be good. So I'm working on a separate issue. Um, it's move requirements into backend txt. So I'm going to do git checkout dash b, the issue number, and I'll just say move requirements txt. And I'm over here and I'm doing work. I see in Slack, hey, someone has merged a PR to main. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that my work's in a good state. I'm going to hop over to main. I'm going to run pull. And now I have those changes to main on my local Git repo. And I'm going to hop over using this nice dash shorthand command to my new feature branch. And if we go back to this diagram, to this workflow, we see this workflow in action because I need to get the new changes on main onto my feature branch so it's up to date, right? And I'm losing my diagramming, right? I've pulled down main here, but now on my local Git repo, I want to merge main into my feature branch. And so this step is important, so I want to check in with folks. And can someone explain to me why am I going to do this? Why am I running this command to merge on my local Git repo on my computer main into my other feature branch? Tony, yes, sir.
So you're always working with the updated code.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm always working with the updated code. Maybe I'm working on some front end code and someone just updated the back end authentication logic and it impacts how I work. This is also where communication comes in, guys, because there's no way around it. It depends what the code is, right? And I'll talk more when we get to merge conflicts, but sometimes you might need to wait to merge main onto your feature branch. Sometimes you might need to ask someone like to walk you through that code to see how it impacts the work that you're doing. This is where like communication is really key. Right now I'm just like demonstrating the workflow, but if I was doing this for real and I had like a half day or a day of work on my feature branch, I might spend 30 minutes, maybe even an hour looking over changes to main and talking to people before merging it in, just to make sure I know what everything does. Right. And so this is why that feature branch workflow is that sort of continuous cycle, right? Of I get the main on my local, I merge it to my feature branch on my local, I push my feature branch up to GitHub, and then we PR code review and merge the feature branch onto main on GitHub. So I've done that. In fact, I'm just going to do git push And so now I haven't really done much work, but over here, if I go and I look at the branch for my work, I have it up to date with main. And now let's go ahead and do the work that I actually want to do. Again, this is a small one. We are going to, I'm going to use the git move command. So git can track it requirements.txt into backend requirements.txt into the backend directory. And git mv or the move command, it's the same thing as using the move command on the command line, but git mv tells git that we're moving a file and it helps it track it a bit better. The outcome is the same though. And let's do git commit m and we'll say move requirements txt into backend and we'll push that up. And let me go ahead and make a pull request the easy way. Note how it uses my commit message here. Let's pretend I wrote a really thoughtful and descriptive PR request message explaining how to test it and all that good stuff. Rick and Chris, let me add you guys as reviewers again. And let's create the pull request and I'll drop it in the channel. So when you guys are doing this, I do recommend you can even go in and set rules. If you go into settings and you go to rules and rule sets, you can set rules to protect, say, the main branch so that you can never modify it directly. Somewhere in here, there's also a way to set a rule for like that a pull request has to have at least one approval before it's merged. I apologize, I'm not sure where that rule is off the top of my head. I recommend for a small team, uh, don't maybe set the rule of like one reviewer, but most places I've worked, the rules might not have been set in GitHub settings, but they were well understood on the team, and you were not supposed to merge a PR until it had been approved by at least one other person. Um, so that's what I recommend you guys do is just set the informal rule. If you want to, you can set it in settings. It may slow you guys down a bit. It really just depends on the team. So in a real situation, I would wait for someone to approve this before merging. But now again, we have this pull request merged. In fact, if I want to, I can delete this branch either here or if I go to the code and we go to look at all the branches, um, I could delete it here. You really should only ever be deleting your own branches. The pull request is still there. You may just want to delete branches to clean up as you go. It's really dealer's choice. And again, I'm going to go back to main on my local and run pull. And now I have that change there. So we've walked through the feature branch workflow, right? And we've seen how, again, this one workflow is going to be like most of our lives for the next several weeks. I pull down most recent main, I create a feature branch, and I write my code. And frankly, the smaller the work that you do, the better, because it makes it easier to review the pull request and you want more velocity. You don't want massive PRs dumped after like 3 days. You want little bits as you go. I push the feature branch and I PR it. I get it reviewed, approved. Um, we'll talk about merge conflicts and updated main on the feature branch in just a minute. I push those changes. I get someone to code review and approve the pull request. We merge it onto main and rinse and repeat. So this is a good time to just check in and see what questions folks have. Rick, yes, sir.
Oh yeah, I've got questions. You were mentioning like uh the pull requests don't make it like massive, like 200 lines of code. Um, yeah, so that's kind of that's going to be difficult to get used to because
Yeah,
you have to stop your whatever you call it. Yeah, everyone's got their own little uh without calling it like procedure. Like
yeah, like
everybody's got their
workflow
own,
process.
yeah, workflow. Yeah,
Yeah,
everybody's got their own workflow. Do this, do that, works, test it, good. More code, test it, good, works. And then, yeah, and you could get into the hat, or you could get into some trouble by like doing that too long and then pushing like, 400 lines of code or 5 files with like 100 lines of code each, and it's just yeah, I
yeah,
could see where it could get out of control.
yeah, totally. That's definitely the hardest part. And realistically, I think often that's where communication really comes in. That's also where sort of like in the product management workshop, really trying to think about how can I take a user story and break it into smaller parts helps. Um, and oh, Francisco, excellent point. Yeah, that's a really good, yeah, that's a really good approach. Um, Francisco saying in the chat, update your pull requests to be test technical tasks and not features, and that will help keep it really small. Yeah, that's a really good way to do it as well. Like, if I'm building the back end authentication logic in Django, maybe that's one user story, but it's four technical tasks. If I want to, I could even make separate issues. One task could be create the sign up endpoint in Django, and then that's a PR. And then the next one is make the login endpoint. And the next one is make the logout endpoint. You could even be like just creating the user model. And if you have any fixtures or unit tests along with it, that could be a PR as well. Um, if you want, you can do multiple PRs on the same branch. It's sort of a variation on the feature branch workflow. It might be simpler to just make a new branch every time to get started. It's a little bit dealer's choice. And yeah, Francisco, I don't know if you want to add anything to that, 'cause that's a really good point.
No, that's pretty much it. Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, that I would say is the way to do it. Like have PRs be technical tasks and don't be afraid to have like a user story broken up into smaller technical tasks. Um, I saw, were there a couple other Rick, yes, sir.
I think somebody else had a question, but it may have gotten answered. My question is just roles in a team. Is this where your I think they call it CI/CD role comes in? Because I could see this being like a whole day thing where you're just scrolling through pull request, from like a team, and what is that called? Constant integration, constant
Yeah,
development.
yeah, continuous integration, continuous delivery.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, it's related because that's about like automated testing. It never replaces code review, but you'll see you guys kind of got a preview of CI/CD actually with the assessments with automated tests. A lot of companies set it up so that whenever you make a pull request, it kicks off a test suite. And if your code isn't passing all the tests, no one is even going to take the time to review it until all the tests pass. But so then you get a high degree of confidence between the manual code review and the automated tests. And then when you merge, it like kicks off a build to put a new version of it on the live site. You touch on a good point though. Senior engineers spend a lot of their day reviewing code. Code review takes time. You guys, especially with small teams, you might just want to do the code review live. Um, for a big one, it might be worth doing. It will slow you down in the beginning, but speed you up in the end. Because as you guys know from your personal projects, there's so much complexity. And if you guys kind of start getting out of sync as a team, it gets harder and harder to get back in sync. So it's better to kind of over communicate in the beginning, and then you start to get not just your own coding workflow, but kind of like your team workflow. And that's why most software engineering teams are small. Like 10 is big. for an engineering team. Like you see an engineering department broken into a lot of small teams of like 3 to 5 or 3 to 7 people. Even seven is kind of big. Yeah, great question. Why don't we take a break? Let's take five, and when we come back, we'll look at merge conflicts, and then we'll end with I have a deck that goes a bit more through talking about team productivity and some tips for that kind of stuff, but it'll have the most impact after we've gotten our hands dirty with the merge conflicts. So let's take a break, and I'll see everyone in 5 minutes. Thank you guys. All right, so we're going to talk about merge conflicts, what causes them, how to fix them, and how to avoid them. And avoidance prevention is really the best approach. So when you merge two branches, Git does not try to be smart. If there's like two files where the same line of code has been changed, or there's names that have been changed, or things where Git can't easily figure out which change is the correct one, that's called a merge conflict, and Git will tell you, I need your help. I need your human advice on how to fix this. When it's just you writing code, there are no merge conflicts because you're doing all your work on one branch and it's really just you. When you're working on a team, the code base is constantly changing. This is really when merge conflicts happen. So I'm not going to go too deep into how Git merge works. There's different ways that it can do it with what are called merging strategies. Um, what's really important, I think, is just a little bit of jargon. Um, the current branch is the branch that we're currently working on that I've checked out. The target branch is when we run git merge, the stuff that we want to merge into, right? So when we were making those pull requests, here what they call the base, we also call the target. I would want to merge my feature branch onto the target branch or the base branch. There's this idea of a common base where it's the most recent commit shared by two branches. The tip is the most recent commit on a branch. And we have some diagrams here just to sort of illustrate different ways that merges might happen. Um, but what's really important is merge conflicts. So when Git can't automatically combine changes from different branches, this creates a merge conflict. Same line changes, uppercase directory names, a bunch of structural changes, like I have different directories and I'm putting different things in different directories. Or if I haven't touched a branch in a long time, these can contribute to merge conflicts. Um, a simple example here is maybe one developer for a method has it say hello world, while another developer changes it to say hi everyone. Git can't automatically figure out which version should be kept. It'll throw a merge conflict, and then we need a human to resolve it. So this next point is important. This one's important. It's a gotcha. It's not so much about merge conflicts, but I've seen this happen in group projects, and it can cause a lot of pain. On Macs, when you create a directory name or a file name, under the hood, OSX is not case sensitive. It's ignoring case sensitivity. On Linux, it is. So for WSL2 or the Linux GitHub is running in the cloud, stuff is case sensitive. So I've seen issues where like the backend directory started with an uppercase letter B, but someone else had it lowercase and it caused a real pain. So avoid case sensitive directory names and follow the appropriate naming convention for files, right? React component files should be named, uppercase first letters, so on and so forth. Make sure everyone on the team is following the same naming conventions for case sensitivity, and have everyone do everything the same way. Um, Merge conflicts can also happen for structural changes. If you move a function between files and but then someone else modifies it. This next one, stale branches, is a bit more of a workflow thing. If I'm working on a feature branch for 3 days and I've got four other people on my team and they're all pushing and writing code, the main branch might have like a huge amount of changes. And then I try to merge main onto my feature branch, and there's all this stuff and there's all these conflicts. I'll talk about this a bit more in the sort of tips and tricks at the end. But basically, you want to be merging main onto your feature branch like a couple times a day, really as often as you can, because the smaller you keep changes, the easier it becomes. I'll discuss avoiding merge conflicts more in a bit, but again, it really comes down to communication, coordination. Don't touch the same parts of the code at the same time. Do small features like Francisco was saying. Make your PRs about technical tasks and not full-on features and user stories. Like if it's small and self-contained, that's a good technical task. Creating a model, creating an endpoint, modifying a model. The smaller, the better. Code reviews and then consistency and having everyone on the team write code the same way and use linter extensions like AutoPep8 or Black for Python and Prettier and ESLint for React. So just as an example here of how organization can help, if I'm writing some front-end code and I have different pages, and then I have some different services, maybe for my Axios API, something for authentication and some validation logic. If I have these in three separate files in one directory, as opposed to everything living in a utils.js, this makes it easier for different people to work on stuff in parallel. Um, and there's less chance of two people touching the same file when modifying code. So by kind of having a good, well-organized structure, this it can help a little bit with merge conflicts. So this is the talking part, but now we're going to get into the coding part, and we're actually going to cause a merge conflict. Um, and we're going to do this by there's going to be two issues that we're going to write code for. And Rick, thank you for helping me out with this.
Yeah,
One
not a problem.
is, yeah, one is we're adding a goodbye endpoint to our Flask app, right? And the key thing here to remember is I have a really simple Flask app. There is a student class. There is a list of students. There's an endpoint to get all the students. We're going to add a goodbye endpoint that's going to take a student ID and it's going to return some sort of goodbye message that looks something like this. But then, Rick, I would like you also on this same issue to rename this all students list to something else. Like it could be, my students or whatever you want to rename it to. And I want you to give each student a different name. And I would like all of this work to be on one single commit. And that's going to help us cause a merge conflict. Do you want to share your screen and we can go through it together, or do you just want to tackle it down? What's going to be easier?
Uh, well, let's go. I'll share my screen just in case I have issues.
Okay, perfect. And I wonder why I didn't get. All right, let me stop screen sharing. And yeah, please go ahead and share your screen and let's code this one up. Yeah, and then once this is done, I'll do something else that's going to produce a merge conflict and I'll walk through resolving the merge conflict.
All right, y'all can see my screen.
I
Yep.
can't
All right.
guess.
Okay. All right. What would you like me to call this branch again?
Um, let's just call it let me pull up and see the issue number.
Um,
Let, let's call it sorry, I have too many. Just call it goodbye message. Yeah, or 5 dash goodbye message. That's perfect. Thank you.
5 dash goodbye message.
Yeah, and if you don't mind, I usually make branch names all lowercase, but it's not
Oh,
a
okay.
huge deal.
No, that's fine.
Awesome.
All right. All right,
And
cool
so,
beans. Yeah, and you had, all right, so get the student, make a custom goodbye message, use this code to grab the ID and get the student.
yeah, so that code is like half the battle right there.
Yeah.
So if you
Yeah,
scroll down and
where,
you look at one of the other endpoints there, like
yeah,
the
right here.
yeah, so you can just make another route uh and we can just call it like slash goodbye and it's going to be a get request and then we can use that code from the issue.
All right, slash. By get
Nice.
get all students. All right, what did you have over here? You had
Yeah,
ID
I didn't actually include the
equals.
method name. Let's just name it, let's just name it goodbye. Let's just name the method on line 46 goodbye.
Yeah, get goodbye.
Sure. That's good. Yeah, that's a good idea. And you should be able to get rid of most of the rest of that code and replace it with the stuff from the issue.
Yeah, the ID.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh, okay, so just up, up, paste. Ooh. Alright. Oh,
Yep.
that's not
And you
right.
just got to bring it back like one level of tabbing. And
There we
then
go.
I think we can just return JSONify student instead of student list.
Yeah.
Nice. And there's a couple other things I'd like you to do here, and these are the things
Yeah,
that kind
you
of
want me
are
to
going to help with merge
change
conflict.
names?
Yeah, let's change the name of the all students list. And in fact, if you just like scroll up to where we define it, and yep, and if you want to just
Yeah.
right click on it to do rename symbol for line 22, yep, and somewhere in there, there's a rename symbol option. Yep. And just whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if it's control something. For like changing multiple lines. What is that? Control something. Having all of them. You want me to change all of them, right?
Correct.
Control
Yeah.
Shift L.
Yeah. What's Shift L?
Yeah, Control Shift L, I think.
Oh, Control Shift L. There we go. Thanks. All right, we'll call it something like all grids
Nice.
and
I love
save.
it.
All
And
right. So
now,
all grids and what else did you want? Rename all students, done that, and give each student a different name.
yep. And part of what we're doing here,
Uh,
by the way, we're doing way more work on this one issue and this one commit than we should. Like, this is really three different technical tasks put into one. And it's part of the reason we're going to see a merge conflict, right? And I'll talk about that in a bit. Awesome. And then once you're done, go ahead and add all do get add, to add all your changes.
yeah.
Everything should be on one commit and commit it. And the one commit is what's gonna force the merge conflict. And just give it a commit message of whatever and go ahead and push it up. Nice.
All right, cool.
Nice.
All right, cool. Now, hit push. Boom.
Yep. And just go ahead and, copy that git push set upstream.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, whenever we make a
I
new
forgot to
branch,
do that. Yeah, I
all
forgot.
all good. Nice. And actually, you want to make a pull request for this? Are you able to pull up the browser?
Yeah, yeah, I got it right here.
Yeah, perfect. And
Uh, no, go ahead.
yeah, go ahead and make a new pull request for your work that you just did.
Uh, uh, oh,
Yep, that'll do it.
uh,
And go ahead and just put whatever you want in the description. It doesn't really matter. And just add me as a reviewer. And really anyone can comment on PRs, but GitHub will like send a notification to the reviewer and you guys can like connect it to Slack and stuff, and that's part of the advantage.
I'd probably get fired for this. Mary had a little one. Yeah, okay. Create pull request.
Yep. And I can see the PR on my end. And if you want to on the right, you can add me as a reviewer, but I'll just add a
Yeah, no, I got it. Request.
and I'll add a looks good to me message along with the ship it squirrel and a ship icon and go ahead and merge that sucker.
All right. Merge. Yeah, sure. Uh, yeah, that's fine. Confirm merge, and then we're gonna have a yep merged.
Awesome. And thank you. Great job,
That's fine.
man. Yeah,
All
and
right.
thanks for letting me kind of walk you through that.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I just wasn't sure what you want. I was reading your comments, but I just couldn't really follow what you wanted me to do over wherever it was.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
over here.
this is
Yeah.
perfect. And it
All
also
right.
there's it's better to do it this way because I have to kind of walk through a couple steps to make sure that
Nah, I good. Yeah,
there's a merge
you didn't
conflict.
need me to. You didn't need me to continue sharing, did you?
No, this is perfect.
All right.
Okay. So, let's see here. I'm kind of looking over my merge conflict steps here. So this should cause a merge conflict. So what we're going to do is, and let me go ahead and share my screen here, and let me bring back up VS Code and everything. So, um, and let me close out the sidebar just so we have a little more real estate. And so I'm on the main branch. I am not going to pull down the changes that Rick made. If we look here, we see that we have all the other changes, but not those. And in fact, let me go ahead. And if we go and we look at the commit history on main, so here's the work that Rick just did, right? Um, but I'm only up to here on my local Git repo on my computer. So pretend that Rick and I have been working on different features at the same time, right? Rick's work isn't done yet. And so we started at the same time. And while Rick was working on that, I went ahead and I started working on this other issue of moving the all students dictionary into a separate file. And let's open up app UI, and we actually will use the file browser here. And so Rick is working on his feature. I'm starting work on my feature, so I'm making my feature branch. I've got issue number, let's see, what issue number do we have here? Issue number 6. So we'll do 6, move all students dict. And so now I'm doing work on my feature branch, and I'm going to move the all students dictionary into a separate file, and I'm going to move the student class into a separate file, right? I don't have any of the work that Rick did. All students is still named all students. These names are still the same. So I'm going to create a new file here in this backend directory, and I'll just call it students.py. And I'm going to do this in 2 steps. First, I think I'm going to move this class into this other file. Now, I've moved the class, which means I'm going to need to import it. So from, if I can get this right, backend students import my student class. So that's half of my work. And then the other half is this dictionary. And I want to move all of this into my other file. So again, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to move this into my other file in Python, my Python module. And so again, I'm going to now need to import that as well. Now, I am not following best practices. I'm not merging in work on main. Rick and I are working in parallel. So I'm going to add my changes. I'm going to commit my changes with a message, and we'll just say move all students dict, just to keep the message short for teaching purposes. And I'm going to push this up to the repo in the cloud. That branch doesn't exist on GitHub yet, so we have to run this extra command. And so far, so good, right? But when I hit compare and pull request, and I create the pull request here, and we'll say resolves issue number 6. Remember, creating a pull request is always safe. But now GitHub is telling me there are conflicts that have to be resolved. There are merge conflicts. So you never want to click this button here, resolve conflicts. You never want to use the web editor. We're always going to do it in VS Code. And if I look at files changed here to see the diff between my branch and the other branch, we can see the work that I've done, right? But what I want now is I want to fix this merge conflict on my local branch, right? To go back to the slide deck, and I probably should have just put this in TL draw because I keep referring back to this same part of it over and over and over. You always, first off, we always protect the main branch. We are never going to resolve merge conflicts or do work on the main branch. Second of all, when I have a merge conflict, I don't want to deal with it on GitHub in the cloud. I want to use VS Code and deal with it on my local machine. So on my local machine, I'm going to merge main that has Rick's changes onto my feature branch on my local machine. This will cause the merge conflict there, and we'll see how to fix it in VS Code. And we'll kind of put this just off to the side, though it's pretty small. So maybe we'll leave that there. So now I'm going to hop back to the main branch. I'm going to pull down Rick's changes. Right? So we now have that work that Rick did. I'm going to hop back to my feature branch, and I'm going to merge main onto my feature branch. And this is happening on my computer, on my local Git repo. And now we see some interesting things happen. Auto merging, conflict, merge conflict in this file, automatic merge failed, fix conflicts, then commit the result. And if I type git status, we see unmerged paths. We see this message. If I wanted to open up the built-in VS Code source control tool, we would see a bunch of things here. We don't need the git graph, but we would see merge changes. We see this message here. We see this exclamation point. There's a number of different conflicts, right? And let's also see what a merge conflict looks like. So here we see Git was unable to figure out what to do because I moved this class somewhere else. I moved all grads to a different file, but Rick renamed it and renamed all these students. And this is basically GitHub trying to combine those things. As you see, there's options to choose the incoming changes, the changes that Rick made from main, to keep what I have, to try and combine them, to compare them. We're actually going to use the merge editor, and that's what you're going to want to do. But this stuff is VS Code. But what you see here on this line with head and these brackets and stuff, this is what Git does. And it actually adds in that text. And if I get rid of that text, Git and VS Code don't correctly identify that it's a merge conflict. But I just want to emphasize this is just text that Git adds to flag the merge conflict. And then the rest of what we're seeing is VS Code and Git paying attention to that and giving us a really nice UI. And note, by the way, how down here for the goodbye endpoint that Rick added, we don't have any conflicts because this is all new code, right? Now he's using all grads for the students and the change that he made to that name here as well. So this is part of the tricky thing about merge conflicts is that things interrelate, right? Because I also have this student's PY and Git is not smart enough to figure out what has happened, right? So there's actually a couple things that I'm going to have to do to resolve this merge conflict. And I'm going to have to, in students PY, rename all students to all grads. I'm going to have to make sure the new student names Rick made are correct. I'm going to want to double check my imports from students.py, use the right variable names, and double check the code Rick added still works, that my fixes didn't break it, right? So there's no shortcut to thinking through a merge conflict. And you're probably going to have to talk to the other person involved to get context on what to do. Now, this merge editor tool is really great, but it's not going to solve all of our problems for us. And what I'm seeing here, I know this looks like a lot. Here on the right is my current code. And let's actually get a little more space. So here on the right is my current code. And we see from backend students, import students, all students, this is the code I wrote on my branch. Here on the left is, they call it incoming. This is from main. This is what I'm trying to merge into my feature branch. I'm trying to merge main into my feature branch. And this has the work that Rick did, right? It doesn't have this import statement because students.py, that file didn't exist. The student class is still over here. All grads is what Rick named. And then in the middle, is sort of this is the final outcome, right? This is where I change stuff, and this is what VS Code will save. And you can choose to accept incoming, ignore, um, or merge, and so on. And so a couple things need to happen here. I want this student class to live in my other file. So I can't even use, in fact, the merge tool here. I have to really fix this merge conflict manually. Sometimes the merge tool can do the work for you, but sometimes it can't. So I'm just going to click accept incoming. Um, we're going to hit complete merge. But if I type git status, note that this hasn't committed anything. It's just gotten rid of that merge conflict message. But I know what I have to do to make this code good, to have it be in a good state. So let's walk through things step by step. The student class is over here now, where it should be in the other file. And I import it, which is correct. But I'm also importing all students. And that's not what I want, right? This should be all grads. And in fact, I shouldn't see all students anywhere in my code base anymore. That variable name should not exist. So I'm going to do a global search or Control Shift F and search through my whole code base to see if it's anywhere. And it's only in that one comment line. You can also do this on the command line with a command called git grep. It will ignore anything in that .git ignore file that it's told to ignore. So if I do git grep all students, we see that it's only in that comment. If I do git grep all grads, and this is kind of what you want to do when you make these kinds of changes to have confidence that your change is correct. I'm seeing all grads everywhere I would expect it to be. And by the way, if you ever need to do a global search and replace, the global search can also globally replace. When possible, I do think using rename symbol by right-clicking is the better option. So that one's done, but I think I may have screwed up. I may have, in fact, lost the student names. And I actually screwed up my process here because I don't have the student names because I kind of lost them because I changed up. There we go. They are over here. So we need to do some extra work. I don't want this stuff to be here at all, right? So let's just get rid of it from there and put it over here. And I'm just going to make a comment. We'll just say the new one. And you know what? I'm just going to keep Rick's students. And now I have the new names. So that next step is done. Now let's double check my imports. So I'm importing the student class. I'm importing all grads. Everything's looking good there. And now, because I've been doing so much refactoring and modifying of code, I just want to do a sanity check to make sure that this looks correct. And I might even want to message Rick and be like, hey, I had to deal with a merge conflict. Can you review my PR to make sure I didn't accidentally mess up the code that you added? And in fact, I probably would. So I think all this looks good. So let's get rid of this comment. And if I type git status, we see we have even more changes. So let's just add those. And again, I'm just going to keep my commit message short. Fix merge conflicts for renaming all students and student names. I'm going to push this. And let's hop over to the browser. And I need to pull the browser back up because I got rid of it to give us more real estate. So give me 1 sec here. So now, oh, and I need to pull request my work as well. Now I should be able to make a pull request. Here's the branch that I was just working on. let's go ahead and let's make a pull request for it. Um, oh, and I apologize. My brain got so locked into fixing, I forgot we had the pull request. So that was where we started, right? We made the pull request, we saw the merge conflicts, we come back here, the merge conflicts are resolved. And the main branch has never been touched. It's been safe and protected the whole time. By using VS Code, I have much more powerful tools for fixing merge conflicts. Now I have my feature branch here in GitHub on the cloud in a good state and working. And I'm going to do my final sanity check of manually reviewing the code because there's a lot of stuff here, right? This got moved to the other file. Here's the import. That's what I'm expecting to see. Here are the new ones. And I might just add a message. I might say, uh, I apologize, Rick. I can't remember your GitHub username, but I would tag you and I might say, Rick, could you confirm I got these names right? I had to fix a merge conflict. Um, because, if I'm fixing a merge conflict on my branch, I probably want to check in with the other person who wrote the code I messed with to make sure I didn't do something silly, especially for more complex stuff. So again, this is the value of code review. And Rick would review this and he'd add a comment saying like, hey, Adam, this looks good to me. You can merge it, right? So depending on who's sort of the expert at hand, you might need different people's approval. And now we can safely merge our pull request. And now we have all of that code here onto the app, and we've seen how to walk through resolving a merge conflict. And frankly, a rather tricky merge conflict, right? That was not a simple merge conflict. It had a lot of moving parts. So I just want to pause and check in and see what questions folks have and what's on people's minds about all this. Rick, yes, sir.
Yeah, so I think that kind of answered my first question, but I've my other question is when do you finally um merge everything to main? Is that like when you're ready to ship the product, when you decide you're gonna merge everything into main?
Great question. You should be doing it all the time, right? And that's what we've
But I
been doing
thought
with each of these pull requests. Um,
I thought you said you leave main alone.
well, we want to protect main, and you want to leave main alone when you're fixing a merge conflict. And when you're adding a new feature, you want to do it on a feature branch. But as you're going, you want to be constantly merging to main.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
In
right, hey,
fact,
I guess I get it. All right.
yeah. In fact, the way that like Francisco was saying before, like really you want to make pull requests to merge to main for small technical tasks. Like every time you create a new model, for example. Because the challenge is if you have one giant PR and you merge it to main, like we just saw with this example, it's going to cause a ton of merge conflicts for other people doing work. Um, and in fact, if we take a look at the changes here, so I, on purpose, Rick, kind of made a bad issue. We really have three tasks in one. You
Hmm.
renamed a variable that's an important one used in a lot of places. You changed the values of a bunch of data with student names. And then we added this goodbye endpoint. Those are actually three separate technical tasks, right? And if we had done them on three separate PRs, we wouldn't have had any merge conflicts. And it would have been even smaller and easier to review. And then we merge each one to main when it's ready. And I designed the issue that way on purpose to help kind of see how if we go to there we go. If we look at this, like this might be one user story, and maybe we need to kind of do all these things. but these are actually three separate unrelated things. Like nothing about this goodbye endpoint requires us to rename this all students variable or to change the student names. So, yeah, the smaller the change, the better, and you want to merge to main all the time. But you do it through this process with pull requests and code review so that we can do it safely. Um,
And oops, sorry. I'll
no,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Uh, my last question, I'll try to wrap up my other
Yeah,
question into it. All right, so all good. You're not merging to main yet. You've merged. Conflicts are resolved, everything. And is that, yeah, I understand, like somebody reading the code could probably figure out, all right, it's good. But then is that where you would actually like make sure you test the code and make sure it works? Because
yeah,
just because you looked at it and I changed variables and this, that, and the other, and say we had like I don't know,
yeah.
something, a comma where it wasn't
That's
supposed to, and then it broke.
that's an excellent point. Yeah, 100%. Actually, I'm really glad you mentioned that. So, if you guys write unit tests or end-to-end tests for your group project, you absolutely like you should run tests before you make a pull request to make sure they all work. There are ways to set it up to be automated, but pretty much every company I worked at, if I was reviewing a PR, I would usually check out that branch, clone down that branch, and I would run it to make sure that it runs and that it works. And then, you could just run the tests manually. You can set it up to be automated, but it might be easier to just do it manually to start. So Rick, that's an excellent point. Yeah, 100%. Like if you're reviewing a pull request, I do recommend you actually you check out the branch and run it on your machine. Whoever is making the pull request should do that first as well. But again, it will feel slower in the beginning, but once you guys get comfortable with the workflow, it will speed you up. Um, Tom, yes, sir.
So since we'll be working with multiple people and there's a high likelihood of multiple pull requests all being present at the same time, um, is there any safeguard for or workflow for the reviewer to like know which order to go in so that they don't create a merge conflict themselves just by the order
Yeah,
of merging?
that's a great question. Um, the short answer is there isn't, and that's where communication really comes into play. And actually, the exercise that I have for you all to do this afternoon is about exactly that. I have taken a full stack Pokédex. So there is a Django backend, and there is a lot of code written, but not all of it. Um, and React front end. And the idea is you all will work on the same repo. So one person will clone this repo, um, make sure everyone's added to it, and then each person does one assignment. And if you go into here, you'll see, for example, each assignment is a really small chunk of work. And I've actually given you guys the code here. So one person will create a feature branch, add this Pokemon serializer for moves, and then create a pull request. And I've sliced this really fine. In some ways, I've sliced it more finely than you would in the real world. But this exercise will help both with communication and the sequencing. And you guys will discover that, indeed, if I'm working on something on the front end, I I I might not need to wait for this model, but if it's for authentication, maybe I do. Yeah, so that's a great question. And that's exactly what this sort of teamwork exercise is for, right? This exercise is not about writing code. It's about, sorry, it's about communication and collaboration and working on this feature workflow. Yeah, that's a great question, Tom. I apologize, guys. I have a hard stop on the hour, so let me
Okay.
go through the last part of this. And I think this will answer some of our questions as well. So the last section here, now that we've gotten our hands dirty, we've seen this stuff demoed. Um, this last section is about what I call sort of the golden rules of Git and tactics for team productivity, because I love alliteration. And a lot of this is pretty sort of standard industry advice, and then a lot of it is just sort of hardened experience. But this is all pretty normal for the industry. Um, these are time-tested tactics. I did not come up with these. I was taught these. And if you talk to anyone in the industry, they'll probably give you the thumbs up to most of these things. So I strongly recommend that as a team, you guys do all of these things. I'll make sure to share the link to this. It's in this workshop repo afterwards because I kind of go through each section a bit more in depth here, but we also have a deck, and this is what I want to walk through. So these are 10 classic engineering techniques to help with team productivity. You're going to want to make sure that the main branch is always in a good state, right? So as to your point, Rick, it's not necessarily about not merging to main, but protecting it. The code on main should always run. It should always be correct, right? And the feature branch workflow avoids doing work on main or solving merge conflicts on main. Daily team stand-ups where you talk about this is what I'm working on. These are my blockers. These are my questions. Breaking work into small chunks, merging to main often. I apologize. One moment, folks. There's someone knocking at my door. Give me just.
How's everyone doing?
Um, Going all
I'll
right.
keep I'll keep everyone entertained. Anyone got a good joke? I know there's a bunch of dads here. Someone's got to
We're
have a
we're
bad joke.
all in we're all in the military, so all of our
Yeah.
jokes are dirty.
Hey guys, sorry about that. Um, Identify work that can be done in parallel. Use fake data. Agile sprints, pair programming. Choose a manager. Choose a leader. Let's walk through these. Two people should never touch the same code at the same time. I kind of snuck this one in. Relatedly, don't touch someone else's branch without their permission. This will make life a lot easier. Make sure the main branch is always good. This is the most important rule. Um, the main branch should always run. It should always work. It's the source of truth for your program. You want to try something, use a feature branch. If you feel like you want flexibility for some reason, some teams create a dev branch. They merge PRs to that, and then they merge dev to main. I honestly think it might be too much of an extra step because if you always prioritize making sure that your app runs on main and main is in a good state, then everything else becomes easier, right? So don't break the main branch. You want to merge to it often, but you want to make sure it's always working. Daily stand-ups. Our stand-ups, we borrow the term from Agile, but it's sort of a different practice. Talk about this is what I did, this is what I'm doing, these are my blockers. Keep it simple. Save the discussion afterwards. If your team wants to, you can do it on Slack. The goal here is really, again, communication and coordination. Breaking work into small chunks, like Francisco was saying, small technical tasks. You actually want to merge to main often because the smaller your chunk of work and the more often you merge to main, you reduce the chances of a merge conflict, right? Big PRs cause merge conflicts. Try to have a PR ready at least once a day. Think small. Think velocity and momentum from small units of work. When you're working on a feature, you might be working on a big feature. It might take you a day or two. It might take you longer. You should be keeping an eye on Slack or GitHub and merge main onto your feature branch often, at minimum daily. What you don't want is you wait like 4 days and three other people have merged to main and you are working on your feature branch and you merge main onto your feature branch and you have like 20 conflicts. Again, think small. If I'm merging main onto my feature branch like twice a day, my worst case scenario is like one tiny itty bitty merge conflict. Do code reviews for everything. This will feel like a lot, but what you guys will find is once you get that communication workflow going, it will speed you up. When a pull request is ready for review, put it in the team Slack channel. Related to this, and this kind of goes back to user stories and breaking things into technical tasks and today's assignment, identify work that can be done in parallel. Um, Try to look ahead to see where work is going to conflict. Um, the exercise will help with this. You probably will want to do some team planning meetings as well. Try to think about what can be done in parallel that doesn't impact each other, like different pages on the front end. Sometimes back end tasks can be done that way. And related to this, use fake data. If I'm creating, a front end page to view all the Pokemon, but someone hasn't written the back end endpoint yet to return all the Pokemon data, if we're writing our own Pokemon API, fake it. Write some fake JSON data in your front end and use it so you can build out your front end page. Or maybe you make a dirt simple backend API endpoint that returns fake data so that the front end team isn't blocked. Um, you can use this everywhere. The more you think about how can I come up with fake data in some ways, or it's often called mock data, the easier life becomes. So agile sprints, this one may be a little impractical considering our timeline, but it might be worth doing a 4-day mini sprint. Set some team targets. You should do some upfront planning. You should do some talking about user stories. It's gonna change, and that's okay. The goal here is just a little bit of a structure. And so like a 4-day mini sprint might be a good balance to have deadlines, but then you can reassess where you are after 4 days and try to use this to help give people ownership and collaboration. Internal deadlines are going to be your friend. Pair programming. Um, there's a saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Some people love pair programming, some people hate it. There is an approach called extreme programming that is all pair coding. Um, my own 2 cents is I think it's a bit underrated with an asterisk. Sometimes you gotta go off by yourself and think about stuff, but a lot of the times actually, you come up with a better result the first time pair programming. You get code review as you go, you get eyes on it as you go, you get debugging help as you go, and your knowledge sharing. So this is really going to be up to the team. Again, don't force it, but don't throw it out the window. Um, and then finally, choose a manager and choose a leader. So a leader doesn't necessarily manage, and a manager doesn't necessarily lead. The leaders, you're going to want them to help with vision, goals, motivation, like what's the product, like how are the people on my team doing, what's going to make sense to do for whom. The manager is going to keep track of stuff. It could be a Trello board. It could be making sure this PR gets a code review. It could be messaging people on Slack and basically doing admin to keep everything organized. And my apologies here, folks. Give me just one moment. Thank you. Um, your leader or manager doesn't necessarily have to have the strongest technical skills. Sometimes a team has, they call it a tech lead and a team lead. Right? The sort of people management or project management is a different skill set from the hard technical skills. You might have one person doing both of these, you might not. In general, the more you listen, the more you help, and really the goal is to try and make the team feel like a team. And so I think just a little explicit discussion about this can go a long way and sort of thinking about the different roles between manager, leader, and you could even throw in tech lead as another role if you wanted. So just to summarize, these aren't new. I didn't come up with these. A lot of this comes from agile software development, and the goal here is to have the team feel like a team, to have the team flow, as they say. You definitely need some structure to help with accountability, but you want people to have a sense of autonomy and ownership as well, and to balance these things. So that's sort of my spiel, and hopefully it's useful and will help you guys with your group projects. People usually find the group projects to be a whole lot of fun. So hopefully you guys as well. Um, thank you guys. Let me go ahead and stop the recording here, and then we can talk next steps.